Hi guys, welcome back to Timeless RC. We're doing part 2 of the Tamiya CR01 chassis build today. As from you recall from the last video, we got to the chassis that was to this sort of position at the moment, which is a lovely looking chassis. And also we completed one of the axles and the differentials on the last video. I've put together the other one off video, not to bore you because they're both exactly the same. The only thing I did have to do was something I forgot to do in the first one, which is on the main differential gear where the longer arm joins into it, there should be a little grub screw, which I didn't notice until I've just put this one together. So I've rectified that in that gearbox, in that differential, so we're all ready to go now on that. So the next part is putting on the accessories onto the axles and then fitting them to the chassis. So I'll get all the bits laid out as per the usual method and I will be back to carry on. Guys, I've made a start on the first one. I had a little bit of an issue, so I had to take it back apart and redo it. So I've done one, so I know how to do it properly now. We had it round the wrong way, so unfortunately we had to take it off and do it again. So we're now doing it correctly, because when I tried doing it before, the next part wouldn't actually fit properly, so I knew there was an issue there, so I had to take it apart and see what was going on with it. So it's a good job we did, because otherwise nothing would have been correct. So hopefully we're on track now. Okay, so that's that part. So next we need to take this bracket and we need to insert it on both sides. It's going to be tight because obviously the plastic is still not completely together, where we've only got one bolt in at the moment. So that's as so. We put one long bolt in this side, and aligning it's not easy because it needs to be pushed on further than what it actually seems it can do. So I'll screw that in. And then we can put the top ball nut on top, and hopefully we can get a socket or a spanner onto it, because the other side you couldn't. You can't this side either, because it's so tight you can't get the spanner on there. So we'll have to do it as we did the previous one, with a pair of long nose pliers, which is not ideal because you could end up scratching things. I don't seem to have, there should be a little spanner I would have thought in the kit. You sometimes get your cross spanner and a separate little spanner, but I can't actually see anything that was in the toolbox, so nothing in that pile, is there? No, so we'll have to struggle on. Just hope we don't slip and scratch everything. It's not easy holding the axle and holding a pair of pliers onto the nut. Right. You don't have a lot of room to actually get in there to hold it, which is unfortunate because it's not tight completely. to hold the ball because I'll end up scratching it, and that will end up making the movement of the suspension not so smooth as it should be. And how you're supposed to get put the axle down and make it easier. That's it. Right, okay, one. It doesn't seem right to me. But it says it is, so we'll crack on and see. This is really, really tight to get these screws in, because this plastic bit, this clip that goes on, just doesn't seem to fit the actual section. I don't know if you can see. It's actually twisted and it will not sit on properly. I don't know the reason for it. Come that around that way, so that's the correct way round. Almost like it needs a section cut out of it, but don't know, we'll see. Right, now that doesn't look like the right length, does it? That's the size it says. Excuse me. Right, let's take that one back out. Right. Hang on a minute, hang on a minute. Seems to go better that way round than it does that way. That one fits okay, so it's odd. I don't know why that one is so awkward. Oh, we'll try and proceed to get the bolt through again. Just doesn't seem correct. I don't want to snap the part off trying to force things. So, bit of a design problem here, the way they manufactured it. Because I'm doing it exactly as the manual says, so, and the screw's just not going in. Bear with me guys, I will have a look and I'll be back in a bit. Right, I've had a look at this and I managed to work out what the problem was on this one. I had to put the joint on exactly the same around as when I took it off, which was very clever, which is why it wasn't working. So now you can see you've got the parts on there and they fit correctly. So it was a silly mistake, but easy made, because there's not a lot of difference, as you can see, in the height of that and the height of that, and it's very easy to confuse. So it's worth checking, double checking before finishing bolting. So that's that. Next part we need to do is take some of the bottom mounts for the springs, and they attach onto here. Hold on, they attach that way around. So you've got that one that goes there, and they're held on by 2 bolts. And 2 bolts are BA4 and a nut on the other side. Lock nuts again, which is handy. Screwdriver. Right. So that's one. Get the other one in and then we can do the screws up. And the second one, this is maybe a little bit more tricky to get the spanner in this side as well. Oh no, it does fit. That's cool. I'll get those done. And we'll do the same on the other side. And then we've got to start fitting the wheel holder sections. Okay, so that's one. Sits at an angle, obviously. Actually, I put it on the wrong side, so that's a good start, isn't it? So we'll take that back off and put it on the correct way round. Oh, hang on, this turns over this way, that's why. I got you. We're there. It needs to turn over to be able to do this part, so that's better. So it is still at an angle. Okay. Right. This is where it always pays to read the instructions thoroughly. It's like cutting wood. Read them twice and do the part once rather than do it 6 or 7 times. So that's that one. So that's correct. So it sits at an angle, so the spring's obviously going to go up at an angle. That's makes more sense, I suppose. So that's that side. Do the other side, exactly the same. Now we know which way around we're going, makes it much easier. And the other. Get on that. Okay, let's get these done up. That part. Turn back over. So there you go. You've now got your spring mounts, as you can see. 1, 2. So the springs will slide into those as well as the top sections. Top section's already on there, so as you can see, that's going to fix to that at some point, and then you can slide your springs in. I'm assuming there's something that stops them coming back out this side, so that'll be later. Right, now that bit's done. Like so that's that part finished. Put that one aside for now. So we can now start to install the steering arms and other parts like that. So, does this go a certain way or are they both the same? No, so that's going to be top. So it sits arms at the top as per the instructions. I found the elusive part playing hide and seek with me. So now we can cut it out and we can crack on with the next side. Let's cut those off. Got some Tamiya cutters, side cutters, which are very good because they get right into the plastic and it leaves very, very little, very little section of plastic, whereas some of them actually leave quite a lump and then you have to file it off or cut it off with a knife. So it's got that. One of those, put a bearing into there. That goes up to the top. And that goes the opposite way around to that one. So you've got a little hump to the back of the, actually they don't need to go in there for the minute. So you've got a little hump to the back So that will be that way around. Then we put in the screws again, fixing screws. So I say they've got a section of like a bolt and then a section of just metal. So the metal part goes into this holder and that's what allows it to turn. So they are very good bolts actually. They're very useful to have. And it's sort of well thought about. Although they can be awkward to get in sometimes, like this one. So I'll get this done up. And then we can crack on to the next page. Right. Nice and tight, nice and free. Okay, put the shaft in. So both drive sections are now together, or the steering sections. So we can turn over to page 8 and then we can now fix those to the axle. So we're starting to tape shape now. Once we get this done, we've now got install the steering servo, so we know we're getting on now. So let's crack on and get these fixed onto the axle. Right, so what we need to do is we need to put a bit of grease, a bit of ceramic grease on the ball of the shaft before we put it into the drive coupling, like so. Make sure we get this around the right way, so it's up, like so. And we've got to get it in so that it actually sits in, so you can get the bolts into it. Right, like so. That's actually quite a good fit, to be honest. It's a nice tight joint, so I like that. Impressed. Then we need to just use some small screws to tighten that in, which are those, the small ones. Handy to have magnetic screwdrivers too, saves a great deal of pain and effort. Okay, so we can put our screws into there, which will then lock that in place. One. And oh, two. I'll do the other side, and then that is one axle complete for now. So what I'll do then is I'll go ahead and construct the second one, so we're ready for the next process in a little bit. So let's say boring you with doing the same thing twice. The process is exactly the same, so it's just a case of copying exactly what you've already done and tying into the actual. Actually got little grooves as well, which is quite good because you can put that in at different angles. So I've just done with that one, so it's not the same. So just take it back out again and twist it round as well as the drive shaft, and then put it back on again, and then they're both level, which you can see, which is good. So we need to do more little screws. Box of screws is going down, so you know you're getting through the build, which is good. Right, so we put one in there. Very sound machine this is, it's very sturdily built. So I'm quite impressed with that, despite the problems we've had building it, or problems I've had building it. Probably other people won't have the same problems. But yeah, I'm very impressed with the way it goes together. It's actually really solid. that is going to take some beating, that is, when it's driving, so it's good. So as you can see, guys, that's the first one done. The suspension mounts. You can see the suspension mounts, the shock mounts, rather the spring mounts, are going to be at an angle which is as per the book, so we know we've got that correct. So that's the first one done. Next stage of that is to install the servo. So I will crack on and do the other drive shaft first, the axle first, sorry, and then I'll be back. Right guys, I've managed to finish off the other axle. So we've got both axles ready to go onto the chassis. One of them's got a different angle to the other, so you got, it says in the book that you've got an angle of 25 on the rear and an angle of 15 on the front. That's done by taking these fixings off and just twisting around by so much and pushing it back on again. So it's quite good how it's adjustable. It's easy, and you can have one either end. It doesn't matter as long as you get the angles right. So then the next step we're going to move on to is putting the servo onto the front section of the diff and the axle. So we've got to put on, I've got a servo, just a cheapy servo, it's nothing special. For now, I might have to upgrade it to a more powerful one, because obviously when you're crawling you're going to have quite a lot of pressure on the servo, so it may not last long, but it can be upgraded at any time, so it's not an important issue at the moment. Okay, so I've got the correct servo saver, which goes on there first. Then we've got a spring, metal spring, these ones, which is unusual because the ones in the past I've used have been plastic. So we'll go with one of those. Then we need to add on the actual bar that the steering rods connect to. But before we do that, we need to add a ball on the centre of the saver. So we'll do that. Like so. We'll just tighten that up to make sure it's tight. Okay. Right, next that will go onto the servo, along with the servo, the top bit of the servo, which the screw goes through. Now we've got to find the right screw for this servo, because if you have it too thick it will stop the servo moving. If you have it too small it's not going to grip it, so it needs to be the right size. So I'll see if I've got any screws actually in the bag that came with the servo, other than the screws that only hold the servos into the mounts, which it doesn't look like there is. So I'll have to look through the box and see if there are any screws that's suitable. It's going to probably be one of those, I would imagine. No, not that one. That one. No, it was there. They're playing hide and seek. They were there just a minute ago. Let's get these bigger bits out of the way. Right. No. Oh, I see. It actually tells you the screw sizes on here. So you've got BA7, which is a 3x10mm, BB1, which is a 3x10mm, but it's a different thread, BB2, which is 2.6x10mm, which is also a different thread. But I can't actually, what's that one? That could be, if I can get it out of the box, easiest way with a magnetic screwdriver. Whether this is going to be too small, I'm not sure. So let's try and see. Yeah, that's too small. So it's going to have to be one of the threaded ones. Right, so let's move that out of the way for a minute and grab one of those. Oop. That looks like it might be the part, the guy. So let's just see. Nice and tight, lovely. So you got the flex on the metal, which is good. So when you're going up rough terrain, it's not going to snap the arms, which is quite a good thing. Right, now we need to put on the holders to hold the servo to the chassis. So we need some nuts, which are standard nuts. 1, 2, 3. And lastly, 4. Right. Okay, best way to do this, because it's got holes in the servo anyway, actually won't work, so we'll have to do it this way. Put the bolt through. Sometimes on some servos you can actually just put the bolt onto the part you're looking at doing, and then it slides into the servo, because the slots in the servo allow certain sizes and allow screws into some of them, but not this one. So right, so that's get in there. Again, this is one of the ones where you've got the little nut that sits into the plastic, which is quite useful. So just make sure we've got this around the right way. Downwards. Right. Yeah. So into there. And into the fixing. Oh, one thing we forgot was a washer. Nearly. Need a washer, obviously, because when you do the screw up, the screw being the same sort of size as the hole is just going to go straight through the thread, unfortunately. So we need to get washers. Right, okay, so that's one. Grab another washer. The second bolt this side. Another nut to go in the back of the mount. So we go. That's how it goes on, and it goes on to there, and you fix that on with BA5, which goes into the section which you put the nuts in previously. In the middle, if you remember, we put nuts into the inside of the fixing. So that's one. And 2. So that's that part. It only tells you at the moment to put one fixing into each of those. So there's obviously something else that goes in later that's fixed through them other 2 screw holes, and also you've got another hole here that needs to be something put in it later on at some stage. So we'll follow what it says at the moment, and the next one, it shows that's F6. I need the other one, which is, where did it go? I had it somewhere. There it is. So we need to cut off this part. being it round, it's not easy to get any cutters to get in and get a smooth cut, so you're going to have to file some of these parts just so you get your nice smooth bar without anything on it. You might find you get a little scuff on the plastic, but you're going to get scuffs on it anyway eventually, aren't you, when you're driving? So right, so they then go on to the front of that, and that goes through into the other bolt. So that's the other fixing that we pre-installed earlier on. So that's where the other fixing went to. So that goes on like so. It's quite a complex bit of machining, really. Right, yeah, like the other side, what I'm trying to say is we don't need to put a bar on the other side, because this will fix obviously underneath these two and actually steering with one connector. So it's quite a good design actually, because it means you haven't got to adjust two bars to sort your steering out. You only have to adjust one, which is kind of good. So we need the ball connector and our bolt that goes through there like so. Do that up, get the spanner and just make sure it's tight. Okay. Righty-ho. So if we now put on our bar, we will then find out if the steering is straight, which it is dead on. Dead straight, both axles, which is good. Yeah, so that's what I was saying, is that bar will turn the steering, wherever it's situated, will sit like that, will turn the bar both ways, which is good. So that's that sorted. Next, I think we turn over the page and go on to the next item. No, we've got to put the servo in as well, yeah. Right, okay. I see. I'll put that steering servo, so that is the wrong one. It should be the other one. This is the front differential, so we do need the other one because they are different. Obviously the front and back are different because the front has a steering and the rear is fixed, so this obviously has a purpose on the rear with the fixtures it's got on this bar. So it's easy enough, it's only just two little bolts, we'll take them out, no problem. Take that out. Take that one out, so that can come off. Okay, that makes more sense actually, because this one's not impeded for that steering, so that makes a lot more sense now. That one will fit on there, but that one must go above. Has to go above there, yep. Okay. So let's get you into that. Right, I've connected the servo onto the rod. Now it's just a case of putting the two screws in to fix it to this section. So they're the long screws, and they go right through all the plastic, so that's why it's fairly long. And there is some adjustment on this, so if the steering's not sitting quite proud, you can slide the servo very, very slightly either direction. So it gives you some adjustment there, but you've also got your adjustment on your actual servo horn as well, and with your rod. So that's what that looks like, complete. You've got your bumper protection on there to stop anything hitting your servo, and it's quite awkward because the servo saver's got that metal spring on it and it's quite springy. So that's that section done. So we come back and do the rear section in a minute. Yeah. Right, so I think we'll call that it for today on part 2. And we will come back next time with part 3. So hopefully next time we can get these fitted to the chassis. I was hoping to do that today, but time hasn't permitted with some of the problems that I've had fitting it together, obviously. So until then, guys, happy RCing and see you soon.